Greetings and salutations. You're watching Validate This. And for today's guest, we have a wonderful guest, a little brethren of mine, Alex Anderson.
Respect it,
Or should I say, one Hiroshima?
One Hiroshima.
One Hiroshima.
One Hiroshima.
So firstly, we want to start out from where it is that you started out. Because we know that you're the captain of the School Try and Squeeze team, currently the head boy of the Tweed High School as well. I think many persons probably don't know that part.
Yeah.
Right, because it's not something that you flaunt out there.
No, I don't.
There we go. And it goes to show you his personality on a personal level. But nevertheless, where is it that you started out in terms of schooling?
So, I mean, my education, there's always this saying that your very first school is at home.
Nice.
And so where my schooling began at home, you know, my parents are some of life's greatest teachers to me.
Nice.
Simple things like mannerisms, etiquette, you know, it all began there. You know, while my parents may not have the greatest level of education, like many other persons in Jamaica, from a rural area especially, we come from a background where our parents may not have the greatest level of education, but whatever things they knew, they taught me. And I can remember my mother was big on spelling. When we were in infant school, I remember we had to come home every single day, my sister and I, and she'd have these little cartridges on the wall, cardboard paper, right? Cartridge paper, and have some words and some simple words, cat, butt, rat, you know, little things. And every day coming from infant school, have to go there, to be able to spell the word with her eyes closed. And she was so serious about it that I remember if you get into a beating. It was like that, they get into a beating. But I mean, that's really where my love for knowledge began. It was imbued in me from my parents. I remember my stepfather, on the other hand, I remember he was teaching me one time how to read the time because I was so poor at it. And I'll show you just how poor I was at reading time. If you show me an analog clock, right? Or even it was even more like the digital ones, you know those ones. And you ask me what time it is. I'll go into the room, take up my phone and say 10, bottom 00 AM. I was very poor at it. And reading a clock.
So you just counting numbers really?
Yeah, I didn't really understand they say 10 o'clock or 10 AM or 5 past 10.
But what age was that though?
That was like very early primary school. So I was like 6 years old.
Oh.
I was always seen to be advanced academically, but those are the aspects.
Yeah, man.
There's more social aspects.
Yeah.
That's where I was lacking in some
So
sense.
Academically we were going ahead.
Yeah.
But when it came on to certain things such as those, things
Yeah,
that the average person would probably pick on to easier.
Yeah.
That's something interesting. So which basic school you actually attended?
I went to the proud Bonebrook Infant School right here in Port Antonio.
So that means that you're actually originally a Portland.
Yes, I'm a Portlander, born and bred. I was actually born in what we call Janga Gully. Seaview Farm.
I've never been there before.
It's down in the Bonebrook area, and my parents and I we relocated to Springbank, where I currently reside. When I was about 2 years old. So I'm actually a Portlander, born and raised.
Nice. All right. And then of course after that you transitioned to which primary school?
I went to the proud 4 Evelyn Park Road, 1 Park School, Port Antonio Primary, just out there, sir.
People, I don't even remember the last guest we had from Portland, right? And that would be Miss Golab, you know, by Sweets by John. And as I told you before, back then, these people in this parish here of Portland, they have this big thing when it comes on to primary schools.
Yeah.
You know, like how us in Kingston would have a big thing when it comes on to high schools. They have the proud
primary schools. It's more of the primary school level for us here in Portland.
That's where the pride comes from most of the times when you see them, right? Because you hear them talk about Bonebrook, you hear them talk about
Port Antonio
Primary.
Right.
Norwich as well, I think. You have Norwich in there too, right?
I didn't go to Norwich, John.
But Norwich has a primary. But anyways, so you say you went to
Port Antonio
Primary. What was the experience like for you there?
Some of my best years in schooling, I would always say was at Port Antonio Primary.
Really? What made it so good though?
The characteristics in which I was imbued with. In my time especially, it was a battlefield. Academically speaking, and even outside of academics, it was a battlefield. So there were so many academics there, right? There were so many academics. The kids were all bright, you know, on that level. And so, I mean, for somebody like me who grew up with an upbringing that, hey, you have to excel in school I wasn't ever going to back down from that.
Yeah.
So it was more like, all right, in every aspect where academics was concerned, in my time at Port Antonio Primary, we competed.
Yeah.
So things like spellings, we were top on that. Reading competition, I know it was something that I was fascinated about. Ideas of reading and books.
Yeah.
You know, it was really competitive.
Yeah.
If you do a test,
Yeah.
the aim for everyone is to get the most. And I remember I would get things like 95.
Yeah. Still not feel
And
comfortable.
if somebody get 96,
yeah. Can't
piss.
feel comfortable.
I remember, as a matter of fact, I was in grade 4 one time. I did this like a language arts test, and I remember getting that. I think the score was 96, and one of my classmates, she got I think 98, and I was so pissed, so upset. I took the paper and I tore it up and I threw it in the bin. Even though I got the second highest grade, it didn't suffice for me because if it is not your best, then it is never good enough.
All right. So you hear the man have him own motto when him go by.
Definitely.
Right. I mean, some schools have that motto for themselves personally.
Only the best is good enough.
Only the best is good enough. At Camper though, that was our motto.
Right. I've
seen
seen
Optima
it.
Pretender soon, right?
It's actually our motto at Port Antonio Primary as well. It is.
Really?
Yes. That's why I'm staying where we stay.
Greatness, man. Greatness.
Only the best is good enough.
Only the best is good enough.
Definitely.
Right? But then, so you were a challenger from early on.
Definitely.
Right? And so that really shows in your personality. Because I can tell you, just being on the school ground, outside that school challenge quiz, you see this young man, you see say he's a challenger.
Yeah.
I mean, I talk about when it comes down to personal things, like forgetting an argument.
Yeah.
I'm talking about when it comes down to academics, right? And representing himself and representing what he believes in such a manner, right? So going to primary school, is it that you were given any leadership roles at that point in time? Given that you were doing so well as at academics?
I think leadership was something that came naturally to me and still does. It comes naturally to me, and the teachers at my time, it was obvious to them. I remember I was what we call class president. It's equivalent at high school level, form captain. It's that equivalent, but at primary school or at Port Antonio Primary, we call it a class president.
Class president.
Right.
So from long time presidential.
Long time presidential, man. And it was a position that I held for many grades. I remember off the top of my head, grade 4, grade 6, grade 3, grade 2, grade 1. So the majority of my time I spent in leadership roles right down there.
And you feel as though that pushed you or propelled you down a particular pathway?
It did. The teachers were exemplary. They were exemplary in ideas of what was showed to us and what showed to me as a leader is the idea that you have to lead by example.
Yeah.
It is not fair.
Even from a young age.
Yes.
Yeah.
It wasn't fair of me to ask my classmates, do this, do that, when I am the culprit. I'm the one actually breaking these rules. It's hypocritical.
Yeah.
The teachers were exemplary in that. Nothing that they asked of us, they will do themselves.
There we go.
Definitely. So I grew up with that kind of an attitude from a younger age. You don't ask of people what you won't do yourself, and you do not abuse authority. I mean, it's primary school, and I won't sit here and tell you that I did my job perfectly.
Yeah.
I won't tell you that. You always had instances where one got power hungry. It happened. I won't sit here and tell you any lies. But for the most part,
I'm pretty sure someone there in the comment section will be like, you see that boy there? He usually take me lunch money or something like that.
No, wait.
Probably not that bad, eh?
Probably not that bad.
Bad.
I didn't take lunch money or anything like that. But
we take them sweetie from them.
Sweetie.
Kind of eating like class.
One a few time.
You know, almost every monitor me know from primary school days, them, we take your sweetie and then they go eat it around the car.
Yeah, you know those. You know them way there. It's primary school. Nothing too serious.
Yeah.
Just simple little things like that. That's what we used to do.
There we go. Awesome. But it sounds like it's actually a good primary school then.
Good. Me offended. Me great. We great out there. We the fun, man.
A great primary school. I forgot that we share the same motto. All right, awesome. All right, but then making it through primary school, you were doing well as it pertains to academics. Was it a definite thing for you to go to the Titchfield High School? Were you thinking about going to any other school?
No.
Is your first mistake?
No.
The man, I must left the school in elements.
I remember when I was in grade 3, the first time I fell in love with the idea of attending Titchfield, I was in grade 3. I met...
Were persons around you coming to the school?
Actually, well, as in my family? Well, no. And I'll tell you why a bit later. When I was in grade 3, I met this Titchfielder. He was in his blazer. And back then, they were like tall, a lot more muscular, bearded guy. He was a 6th former in his blazer. And I was like, which primary school did you go to? Because I was so young, didn't really get the idea of high school I wasn't really focused on that kind of thing. I was so drowned in the idea of competing here at the primary level. Didn't really think about high schools like that. And my sister was also at primary school, so it wasn't like I was in a household where I have older siblings at high school, so I'm familiar with it. I wasn't.
So would you be the oldest in
No, I'm the younger of two children by my mother. Right. Yeah, I'm the younger one. I met the gentleman. I asked him which primary school he attended. He was like, well, no, I don't go to any primary school. And I remember he stood firm, chest forward, and like, I go to the Titchfield High School. And I'm like, oh, what name, sir? Oh, what name, sir? And I remember you were saying to me, it's this proud institution on a peninsula. Yeah. I've never been to Titchfield at the time before, so I wasn't familiar with the whole idea of being on a peninsula or anything like that. But just the way he carried himself and how he would go on to speak about the Titchfield High School, I knew that would be the place for me, given what I knew about myself. Because as young as I was in grade 3, I was confident in my abilities and I was sure of myself. And I said, I do not praise myself to think that I'm better than people or anything like that. But because I knew what I stood for and how good I was, I said, if this place is so good, I have to get there too.
There we go. And that mindset is one of the rationales why we do validate this. To get persons to actually have that belief in themselves as well. Not to be flamboyant or boastful about it, as you rightfully said, but to actually develop it so that over time you can do things along that line, or along that pathway. So that's actually a great thing. And again, it goes to show you how the moment you come across persons who are doing things that are inspirational in society, you get inspired too. Yeah. Because you say, here comes an individual who presented the school to you as the Titchfield High School.
The Titchfield
High. You say, wait, this look like my kind of place. Yeah. Why not go there?
The idea of going to Titchfield was sold to me at a very
And he wasn't even trying to sell it.
He wasn't trying, but it came off naturally. And that was what Titchfield was, especially back then. To be honest, it's not that much right now, given the students, the kind of students that are here, unfortunately. Yeah. But with the idea that just how naturally it came off. He didn't have to give me any long speeches, any long spiels. It naturally flowed from him. The charisma, the intelligence, the brilliance, the pride of where he was going and what he represented.
And guess what? We think about it this way, and this is exactly how it is at times, where you find that life is almost like a full circle type of thing. Because here you are
doing the same thing,
being the same individual to many others, another wider spectrum too, I would say. Because here it is that you are now doing interviews and being on national television and all these things, and I'm pretty sure you would have gone international as well at some point, where persons are now looking at you, hearing how it is that you speak, and they are just driven to find out what is this thing about Titchfield High School, because some people don't really know about Titchfield.
That's true.
That's what I'm saying. So the mere fact that they're now being exposed to this, they're like, yo, what going up there, sir? Probably my pitney needs to go there, sir, too.
Definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
So that's an awesome thing. But you left primary school. Well, you would have done what you do?
GSAT.
A GSAT, you know?
My generation, my class was the last one to do GSAT.
We don't feel so old again. we don't feel so old again.
We were the last ones to do GSAT.
The GSAT, right? Come in and say my pepper. You know,
I did GSAT.
Awesome. See, greatness.
Greatness in that place.
But anyways, so you did GSAT. You said no other school was on your mind. So I'm assuming that it will be up front and center on your list.
As a matter of fact, because when you're going to high schools, they give you that form to fill out to see the schools you want to go in preparation. And I remember getting it, and first thing I write, Titchfield High. And then I said some bag of line. I'm like, Titchfield High.
So I teach you, but
yes. And I was told that I can't do that. So I was given a new form, and I had to put it. I'm like, what do you mean? I teach you more and go.
Because it feels like a betray.
Yes.
You ever believe, eh?
Yes.
If it is that you're going. And I think it was somewhat similar to me actually choosing my high school, Camp Road. Because I was like, I Camp Road, so why am I going to waste time on
paper? Anything else. Yeah.
On the paper.
So I ended up having to write, I think I wrote Pontoon. No, I wrote Calabar High for second. Yeah. Because
we had thought that,
we had seen so there were a few students from our primary school that had gone to Calabar. So I heard about Calabar. And it was first that came to my mind. And then I wrote Paul Antonio High School. And after that, I think I wrote Happy Grove. And I'm like, okay, I'm not writing no more. Come don't know me.
Alright. They just write it because it's space today.
That's write it for argument's sake.
Basically. But, I mean, it's not to take away from any other institutions. Right. But it's just a matter of having a strong belief of what it is that you want to accomplish. And therefore, you work forward to it.
Yes.
But, alright, so then you presented yourself to the Titchfield High School.
The Titchfield,
in 7th grade.
Yes.
when I try to think if COVID did come out them time, but
No, grade it was
probably
grade
like
8.
8 or 9.
I was in
yeah,
8th grade,
8th grade.
right.
There we go. So you presented yourself to Titchfield High School. What was the feeling like at that time?
Fulfillment.
Fulfillment.
It was something that
Like a prophecy that has been fulfilled.
Something that I have been working for so many years. Ever since the moment I met the young man from Titchfield, was something I was working for. And know that I was finally allowed to walk through those gates, past the cannons, and enter. I was like, wow, I have finally arrived.
There we go. Awesome. Can you just imagine the feeling? I do it, but we can just imagine the feeling at that point in time. So you came here. What was the competitive nature like? Because Titchfield, I still hold it as the institution here in this parish. Right? You have other institutions that are pretty good, but when it comes on to just that prestige,
Titchfield is a creme de la creme.
I just have to give them that.
Yeah.
Right? I have to give them that. I tell people, before I came to Titchfield and encountered these students and these teachers and stuff, I used to only have one school in my mind as the greatest, and it was my high school, Camperdown. And now that I've experienced it, it's a wonder to some people that are around me. Man wonder how we are cheering with Titchfield. But it's that type of place. It's a really great place to be at, and so you can't really fight them as it pertains to that.
Definitely.
So you came here, and I know that the competition must have been high, just to say it, because these persons that you were, even the young lady that you were competing with, perhaps she even came here. Where did she go? She came
did.
to this,
She did.
Perhaps she came to school, right? And then you have other persons that are coming from other regions, other places as well.
Yeah.
Perhaps even coming from other parishes coming here.
Right.
And now you are put to the test to repeat what it is that you did in primary school.
Right.
What was that like for you?
So coming to Titchfield, the idea I was always given was that while at Port Antonio you may have a combination of students, some academically up there, some maybe and some maybe not so good as you.
Yeah.
You're at Titchfield now, where Titchfield is basically a collection of all those top students from all around the primary schools, even in the parish, and even from outside of the parish. Because I know we had students from St. Thomas, St. Mary, from
Kingston.
Yeah. You had a few.
Yep.
You had a few, but most students from region too.
Yeah.
You had the top. So where one could probably get by with a mediocre level performance in primary school at certain times, any kind of mediocre performance here will get you nowhere. We get you nowhere. So, that was the idea that was given to us exactly when we came here. I remember coming in at summer school, and that's when I saw how heated it was, because at primary school, one subject area, I was an academic all round, except for maths. I was always sport maths. I was always mediocre at maths. I could do a thing, but I wasn't your best mathematician. But one thing that I always stood for was Spanish. Because my primary school it's the only one in the parish that teaches Spanish. So I was always like the best right there. But come to Titchfield, however, I realized that it wasn't a case that I was no longer the best, because the work I had put in over those 6 years was still better. But despite these students coming from primary schools where Spanish was never taught, they were still competitive. Not because they were bright, but because they had a key trait that I think defines any person who wants to succeed, and that is hardworking. So even
despite not being exposed to it before, they were willing to put in the hard work.
And that's where the competitive nature came. The competition for lounges here was, I think it was stronger than even at my primary school. I was still able to manage it, but it was better. Just show the caliber of the students that come to Titchfield.
Nice. All right, that's great information right there. But so you're doing that. So you're focusing on academics. I'm thinking that you were excelling while going through, right? Did you find yourself being at the top, close to the top at that time, or
it was a mixture?
Fell down at any point in time? You think you fell off at any point in time? Not even in a COVID?
I would say COVID. The COVID era. The COVID era. Prior to COVID, grade 7, grade 8, I was on top. In COVID era, I would owe it to a sense of, I won't say complacency, because I don't think I'm ever complacent with what I have. But more so the idea that being away from school, you spend your entire life going to the physical institution itself, face-to-face environment. I was not forced to be online, and I was never I was never the tech savvy kid. Despite being a Gen Z, I was never tech savvy.
And if you interact with him, you would have great reason to believe it.
Yeah, not the most tech savvy of Gen Z.
Even though I don't think you spend time on your phone?
I do. do.
Yes.
I do it. I do. Well, to show you,
Yeah.
I recently joined TikTok.
Recently.
Something,
Recently.
I think late last year.
There we
Late
go.
last year. Something that people depend from what we kill
So wait there. We technically joined TikTok the same time. We're age range is
Vast,
different.
right? And to show you, I was never a tech savvy kind of kid, and in that sense, I kind of struggled.
Mhm.
And there were distractions because ninth grade was so I teach field.
Yeah.
Ninth grade is when we get introduced to the more serious aspects of school.
Like you become more focused now on what it is that you're going to do.
I mean, grade 7, grade 8,
Yeah.
while they are competitive in their own sense, it's really a warm up to what is ahead. Grade 9, I remember getting areas like biology, chemistry, physics. I hated physics with all my guts. And my teacher was Mr. Lindo. Shout out to
Yeah.
Mr. Lindo.
Big up yourself, sir.
I remember it was online, and to show you how much I despise physics.
Yeah.
The very first class I went to, naturally, it's an introduction to physics. So, what is physics, apparatuses in a physics lab, whatever areas that like professions that require knowledge of physics.
Yeah.
That's the first thing we do. The second class, the last class I ever went to,
Yeah.
it was about magnetism.
Yeah.
And that was the second class. So the first class we go, we talk about physics. Second one we go to, we talk about which all the way to magnetism. And I only went to 2 physics classes the entire time. It was so bad that when I came out the second time, Mr. Linda, they didn't even have me on his register.
So was it that you disappeared
I
intentionally?
intentionally avoid physics. Intentionally just did not come to class. I confess, I hated it with all my guts because because remember, I'm terrible, well not terrible, but not very good with numbers. And physics requires me to be able to compete. Not good at that. Didn't like that. Whereas the online, I'm gonna have to come. No, found.
All right, cool. So you made that transition. I'm thinking that you became better at physics eventually.
Eventually, but through quiz.
Through quiz.
I'll say
And
through
there we
quiz.
go. Well, quiz help you. But when did you start the quiz journey though? Was it back that early?
Yes. So my career. So what I always say to people, if you were to hop onto One Spot Media, you would see my very first year, playing year, was 2022.
Oh yeah.
If you
Wait, 2022 is the first playing year?
yeah.
Really?
If you were to ask around teach field, my career began in grade 8.
But so you go ahead,
if you
go
were
on.
to ask me, I'd tell you my career began in grade 4.
Grade 4.
All the way back up to the
Were
primary.
you ever a part of a quiz team at primary school level?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't.
But why you say it started at grade 4?
Because the very first senior quiz match I ever watched was 2016 Grand Finals when Teach Tree was playing. Now imagine.
Seriously?
I'm serious as there's a God of Nahayev. I am serious. The very first.
A destiny that you know?
Thank you very much. The
Destiny
very first quiz match I've ever watched at the senior level was 2016 Grand Finals when Teach Fee was playing against Campion. I remember coming home from school and seeing my mother in the room. That's why I tell everybody that asks me. I remember seeing my mother in the room and pot cover and all them sitting there. Seeing your mother in the living room, nothing normal. But seeing a Jamaican mother with pot cover, something will go on. Something will go on.
And you know no food now cooking in the living room.
In the living room. So I come home and I'm like, what go on? And she's saying, Teach this playing quiz. No, I'm familiar with junior quiz, but not senior quiz.
I'm pausing. Was it that your mother attended Teach Me as well?
No, she didn't.
So, because I pause you there intentionally, you know, just to paint a picture of it. Because that's how celebratory persons become whenever it is that it's their parish against another parish.
Yes.
Especially when it is another prestigious institution like Campion College, right?
Right.
And you say she's now in fan mode. Even before her son went there. That's what, 2 years before her son went there.
2 years, grade 4.
There we go. Right. But all right, continue. There's pot cover there already.
Yeah, pot cover was ready and all of that. And I remember sitting and I was watching. I tuned in just as they had introduced, you know, now the this player for each team. I tuned in just when they were introducing Taji Edwards. There was the last person now get introduced on the 2016 team.
Oh yes.
Freshman.
Forgot to say,
Yeah, man.
yes.
And I remember watching the entire thing, and so the entire procedure, I was just in awe of quiz. I was in awe of Teach Field. Remember, grade 3, I said I want to go there from grade 3. And now I'm seeing Teach Field in this play. And the idea was painted to me. I could see clearly from how the campaign students how they performed that this is no run over. And I mean to get to the grand finals in first place, that says a lot about you. So to see them perform, and I remember they outscored us in the minutes. I think it was 33-29 going into the buzzer. So it showed that this school was probably not just on par with Titchfield, but some would say better, at least on the night. And so when I saw that,
at that appointed time when you saw the scores there,
yes. And I remember watching and I saw just how the Titchfielders played. I was bought. That was further encouragement to go to Titchfield and no new encouragement to play quiz. I want to do, and I'll show you why. Because at that moment, throughout the match, what was happening was that I was being bought even more to go to Titchfield. What was happening now is that I remember after we came back from a break, because there was some commotion about a disruption.
Scores? Over the scores?
It wasn't over the scores. It was that Tajay had said, he gave a remark. He said, "Second Titchfield." To which today it's one of our little mantras within the quiz program. Because he said it was at the very end of the game and he was saying, "Second Titchfield," in a loud way. And by quiz rules at the time, and even it still prevails somewhat today, any kind of disturbance where the reader is not unable to read his question because you're distracting him, the judges will give back that amount of time that you took. I remember Campion was 2 points behind us. 2 points behind us.
And you say it was the buzzer
was very last question. So
2 points can either make or break the competition, right?
Because now the idea is you want 2 points to send this to a tiebreaker, or because it's a must-press situation, and you don't need to be a quiz player to see that. Obviously, you got 5 seconds. It's either you press and give yourself a chance to go to a tiebreaker where it's anybody's game, or you sit there and accept your loss. And so I remember Campion press. They got it correct, and so now the nerves are now even intensified because Tichi was not going to press. Nobody ever said that. I'm leading. The pressure's on you. You're going to press.
Campion pressed and they got it.
Got it correct. Right. So no, I think the scores. I'm trying to recall. The scores I think probably like 39-39.
Oh, nice.
The last question was because now you're going to a tiebreaker, and naturally the first team to press will decide the game whether it's a correct or incorrect. You decided the game. So it's really a one press thing. Campion decided that they were going to press.
What?
And they got it incorrect. And just the outburst of emotion. This is Titchfield's very first title. Not the first finals. It was our fourth finals. But I do remember that the Port Antonio community was extremely supportive because I remember there was a TV down the town center and there was a crowd of support, you understand? So there was belief that because I think Portlanders would have seen through the entire season because we would have beaten top schools that year. I remember this is 2016, so we would have taken out Mona in the third round, Mona High. I remember we took out Monroe in the quarterfinals. We took out Arden in the semifinals. Arden was defending champion that year, and
so
then
that
we
should
went
have been some indication.
So for Portlanders, that was an idea, or there was evidence that hey, we stand a chance. We stand a chance, despite being from the rural areas, despite being whatever people want to say about us. We stand a chance. No, Portlanders always know that hey, Titchfield is a competitive school, but when compared to some Kingstonian schools, there's always question, which is natural. But I believe genuinely
because I think as Jamaicans we're naturally competitive that way.
Naturally. So, but when the dust has settled and Titchfield won, I remember not just the excitement of the four boys or the excitement of the supporters down in town center, but my mother.
Exactly.
Pot cover lick, nice and make people scream, we are shout.
So you could look for me like, mommy.
And I remember what held me, and this is what bought me for quiz. This is the moment I joined the quiz. When I looked into my mother's eyes and I saw the pride. No, she has never met these four boys. She doesn't know them. And the pride that they were able to bring to my mother, and undoubtedly to many other households within the parish and within the rural areas.
Not only just in the rural areas.
Definitely.
Trust me.
To the entire island then, the pride that was brought.
I'm from Kingston and I can tell you that despite Titchfield not being known so well among some persons, the few that do know the institution, they do hold it at a high regard, right? So even for those individuals, I'm pretty sure they would have been supportive regardless. Right? So that's something remarkable to think about. But what is remarkable about the story again to it marks destiny, because what you described a while ago as regards to the final seconds in that match is almost precisely what took place within the final seconds of your match within the match that played this year.
Yes.
Yeah, that you became the winners of
the competition.
I remember being there. Well, not there physically, but I was at home watching, right? And at one point, I don't know if I reached for my knees, but right at the bed, that's for my knees that me I said, God, do. Right? And I remember, I think, what was it again? I think we were ahead. Were we ahead before? I think we were ahead. I'm trying to remember.
Which part? At the end of the buzzer, the last 10 seconds?
Yes.
We were behind.
We were behind.
And we pressed and then went ahead.
So we went ahead
by
and
a
then
point. Yeah.
They pressed again.
JC pressed
again.
Right.
But
they made the last press
the
of the night.
Last 2
because the answer was incorrect, right?
So it's almost like
it's almost like that. Yeah. I'm seeing what you're saying. Yeah.
So when that you were explaining it a while ago, I was like, wait, but that sound like
very similar to what happened this year.
So and again, what it does is it brings you back emotionally and psychologically to the point where you fell in love with this team, with this notion that hey, one day I can be on the team.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that I find to be very remarkable, because here and now, you got to have somebody else out there right now who experienced that, the thrill of it and all these things. And they're going to be like, yo, me can do that.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, some persons might very well watch this video and be like, yo, that happen for real?
Yeah.
So me can do it to them.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying? So, and that's one of the aims, right?
That is one of the aims that was one of my aims and the aims of our program.
Yeah.
Because I always said to myself, the pride I saw in my mother's eyes, and I said I want to do it as well for my mother. And I saw, it was shown on TV how the Portlanders were reacting. I said, look at the pride that this has brought, and I want to do this. Remember, I'm an academic, so this is the perfect place for me to show my skills.
Yeah.
You understand? And I want to make my family proud. I want to make my parish proud, and by extension, the island proud. So that's what I wanted. One of the aims that I held throughout my entire career being part of the quiz team. That 2016 bought me. I said that I was bought. Everything by.
Well, 2 years in a row, the man get bought, you know.
I was grade 3. I was born for teach fee. Grade 4 I was born for quiz.
But there we go. So 2 different things, eh?
Yes.
But here what now? I believe strongly that happened for a reason.
All right.
Because you were being inspired there. And not only were you being inspired, but you were being encouraged to not only believe that, hey, this can happen one day, but to keep on having it in your heart to say, yo, they're going to make it happen. You know?
Yeah.
And then not too long after that, a couple years after that, you found yourself with the opportunity to join the team. How did that come about? First time trying to get in at the team.
It came about in grade 8. I remember I was doing a national Spanish festival competition.
So that would have in grade 8, that would have been 2020?
Yeah,
2020?
It was actually 2019 November. I never forgot, it was November. Right. Just came to, it was early in grade 8. I remember I was doing the national Spanish festival competition. I won that, and the Spanish department. National Spanish festival competition.
Oh, nice. You.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I won it in grade 8. The last time it was held, I was in grade 8.
Like you're giving out them Easter eggs.
Yeah, Easter eggs, right?
Nice.
I won the competition from my school in my category at least. I did poetry, so I did perform a Spanish poem in full Spanish and all.
There we go.
You know, mannerisms and all, gesticulations. And I remember getting a score of 400. It was 4 judges, each and gave 100.
Nice.
But to get back on track, it was because of that exposure that the Spanish department. There's a teacher in the Spanish department, Miss Thompson.
Yeah. Big up yourself.
Big up yourself, Miss Thompson. Now her husband, Mr. Sparks, is the coach of the quiz team.
Yes.
And so when she saw that, she was like, he has potential to do languages for teaching in the quiz. And so she said it to him. Yeah. She should have introduced me to him. And I remember it was one day I was heading to the bathroom, and she saw me underway in the corridor. She stopped me and she said, Alex, would you like an opportunity to join the quiz team? I'm like, what you say? After a grade 4 more,
exactly.
You know, and I remember I told her, yes, miss, and I was so glad. I got the opportunity, and she was saying, you know what, speak to Mr. Roberts and Mr. Sparks in the bio lab of the school.
People believe him when him say him shout out that thing.
Of course.
Me can just hear your voice right now.
Of course. For the people in the corridor. Yeah, man, because I was trying to find a way to get into it. I wasn't quite sure how do you get into the quiz work. I was part of the club. I wasn't part of the club, so effort was being made to get into the program.
Yeah.
I wasn't just sitting down willy-nilly.
But that final
But
step.
that's what really got me into the program. And I've been a part of the program ever since, all the way to upper 6.
Cool. So your first year being there though, how was that like for you?
My first year was really getting to know what quiz is about,
Yeah.
introducing myself to the content material that would define the next couple of years of my life. That's really what was done.
What was focused on?
So it was really about getting acquainted with the program.
But of course you never run left with like you run left to physics class.
No, run left way, you must have mad. We could have left that. Come hella high water
Yes,
and
yes,
to show
yes.
you my dedication. I remember coming to meetings on weekends, because back then it wasn't like now that we go more frequently.
Yeah.
But it was more so on weekends and on some holidays. I remember I came one Saturday and the biology lab was closed.
Yeah.
And I sat out there waiting. But I'm sure it was more than an hour. I don't think it reached 2 hours, but I know for a fact it was more than an hour. I sat out there with my books because I was waiting, not knowing that the team was inside and had intentionally closed the doors to see what I would do. You know those kind of things. You say, all right, we'll lock him out. We'll see if one of us run away, go home, or I'm going to go wait it out. And that's what I did.
You can make a movie about that thing one day.
It happened a second time.
It
happened a second time. The first time I was unaware that they were actually inside. I thought they had just not arrived as yet. And the second time I knew they were in there because on my way I saw one of them on the balcony. When he see me, one going to lock the door. and I was knocking and say, yo, me there, what me do? What I do? And they
of
were
course, that time you weren't
pretending.
Hiroshima as yet.
No.
Yeah.
Hiroshima didn't come about as yet.
Yeah.
But they closed the door, and the idea was that they were not going to let me in to see what I would do. And I sat out there for more than an hour this time. I was out there, and I said to myself, if all the time I got there, all the time I got here, and I said, I'm write me a note. I was not going to leave. I was not going to leave.
There we go.
I was not going to leave.
That's determination right there.
Yes,
and
that's determination.
I guess because even on a wider scale, even internationally, you will see teams, athletic teams, as a matter of fact. That's how they will test the rookies on the team quite often as well. So it's not unusual for something. I mean, it's surprising when you're saying it to me now, because I imagine it for real, right? And that must have sparked something in the team as well to say, here, what? Boy, you're really dedicated, man. Serious boy thing, man, right?
Yeah.
You know, just there for past time or whatever it is, or for accept the fame that might come with it.
Yeah.
Right? So you say you stayed there, took your notes and all these things. That was year one for you.
Yeah.
Getting to know the team and getting to know the content that you were supposed to do and all these things.
That was early 2020.
2020. So that's exactly the year when COVID hit.
Yeah.
Right? But then you moved on to, I try and build a case for when you reach up to the Hiroshima thing, you know. 'Cause I remember being here when that took place, you know. But which year was that? Which year was that? So we can put it into perspective.
It was my second year, 2023.
Was the second year? So we reached the second year now.
We're getting there.
Getting there. What happened for the second year now?
So my second year being in the program, so by that time I had already sold myself as somebody who's committed to the program, loyal to the program. So there was no more question about is he serious about this.
There we go.
No, it was spent more about getting even more acquainted with the material itself. I spent by this time I had spent an entire year familiarizing myself with quiz. The issue was COVID was a big issue because of COVID I couldn't get to be in the team's physical space.
Yes.
So that greatly hampered my recruit years. But I persevered, and that's the word that you're gonna hear me bring up that word a lot throughout this entire interview. Perseverance and persevering. That's the word I used to describe my entire career. Perseverance, because I believe certain things came up against me in my career, and if I wasn't serious about what I was doing, I would have faltered, and we would have likely not been here.
Yeah. That's understandable, and I think you are somehow an embodiment of what perseverance actually means, to be honest. Especially hearing the story now, because most of these things I never ever know. We just say this is Alex Anderson, and I think that's how I got to even meet him, you know, because we just know this young man where he mouth loud and he's very passionate in a way and how he must say it and all these things. And as I said before, it takes getting used to and getting to understand who he is for you to actually get to know him to a good extent. This brings brings me now to one of the rationales behind me wanting to do a video with you.
Right.
For a while now. I remember it being a sore point in a sense where persons would actually just use it and be like, Hiroshima. Yeah. That's why you scream out Hiroshima. And I remember what the question was, perhaps. You remember?
Yeah, I do.
You remember the question? What was the question?
So it was in my second year in the quarterfinals against Monroe. No, this is the time when the best
you went
of
so
3.
far away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is when the best of 3 series came about, when you have to defeat your opponents twice to move on to the next round.
Yeah.
I remember we lost the first match and we were playing the second one.
Oh.
And it was in the minutes, and I would never forgive my teammate because I blame him. I blame Romain for why this happened. I blame Billy. We call him Billy. I blame Billy for it. But the point is, the question was raised something like this: which two Japanese cities were bombed, right?
Oh.
Which one of the 2 Japanese cities was bombed? But because of the time, it was happening. I think I had like 2 seconds left, and naturally, having been practicing and being familiarized with this kind of scenario, the idea is based off of where John Paul is in the question, he would not get to the point where the answer becomes obvious. So that with the time that you have, so this is what's going to happen. You can either offer him an answer before the bell goes, because anything after the bell, even if the answer is correct, it can't be accepted. So either you offer him something before the bell, shoot a shot, like a girl, shoot a shot and see what goes on, or sit down and
see if it lands or it doesn't land, eh?
Right. And the idea is because we're always brought up in the quiz, the idea that every point matters. A game can be won by 1 point. Every point matters. So I am definitely not going to sit down and just do nothing. I am going to offer him something. I mean, it's 2. So it's a 50% chance. So I gave one.
There you go, that's true.
I gave one. It's just that the one I gave was, I gave the wrong 50%. I gave the wrong 50%. So I gave him Hiroshima. No, what is so significant about it and why people still remember it is
the passion
behind it. Because it came up very strong.
But he was wrong at the same time.
He was wrong at the same time, and the expression from Monroe, when it happened, they were startled over there.
Yep.
Franchise.
Women Bob Run.
That's right. What Japanese city was bombed on August 9th? No, in fact, that was Nagasaki. And please don't break the microphones, gentlemen. Nagasaki, bombed August 9, 1945.
I tell people, I'm not the first person to shout on school quiz. I mean, especially back in the days, that was common.
Listen, you are actually bringing back a craft that was there before.
Yeah.
Because when I was in high school, when you hear color bar and
loud. The thing loud.
Loud.
No whisper shouting on.
Because quite often you would hear the judges say, yo, no, you have to
tone down, yes.
Down, right? So when it is that we hear John saying this now, quite often we're like, yeah man, bring back the vibe.
Bring back the old days.
And I'm pretty sure a lot of persons who are used to Science quiz from back then, they're like, yeah man, that you bring back the past. Because sometimes when you look at the comments, that's what they're saying. They'll be like, bring back the vibe, man.
Right.
So nothing wrong with that. That's one thing I always say. But when I came to school and I was like, persons are repeating it, I'm here persons are call you the name. So I was like, I'm bullying my peer counselor because I think you're one of my peer counselors.
I was a peer counselor, right.
So I was like, I'm bullying my peer counselor, man. And I thought to myself, I wonder how this affects him. I wonder if it's going to push him off track or keep him even firmer on the track. And of course, even as a counselor, I never want to actually just come and ask you just so. I don't remember if I actually asked you the question.
I think you did. I think you did.
Yes, I think before we went to appear, I think I remember asking. But at the same time, I wanted to be very careful about what I asked because, you know, some things can become traumatic very easily. So I didn't want it to become that type of thing for you. But nevertheless, after a while, persons were calling his name. And I realized, one of the things you realize about this young man is that things don't really break the man so easy, right? I don't know if it's something that he thinks about when he's behind closed doors or whatever it is, as we naturally do at times.
So on the school compound, it happened more frequently on the school compound. You know, many people were saying, I remember when it came up, because mind you, when I did it actually in studio, it didn't come across as anything special to me because remember, I'm a quiz player, I have access to matches from the past. I'm seeing that this is normal.
Yeah, it's normal.
You go to practice sessions with other teams, this is normal. So imagine my surprise when it came out on social media and people making a big deal of it. I'm like,
But as he rightfully said to you, it was because I didn't know that until you just say it, because of course we don't know more than something else. So it was even hard for me to remember the name Hiroshima. Right?
Yeah.
So I was still proud of you. I was like, you go, boy.
You go. Yeah,
You
yeah.
understand? Because you give an answer. But when you just said it a while ago, it was actually a 50-50, chance. Then it makes even more sense.
Makes
as
sense.
to why
Give
you were
something.
voted in doing it.
Yeah.
Because either you give it or you don't give it.
I don't give it.
Right?
And
so you say you give
I
it.
was gonna give it.
There we go.
Right.
And you came back on the school compound and you felt some type of way.
I will say this is how I felt. There were individuals who were saying, it was embarrassing for the school what I had done. I remember that clearly. Nobody said no. I didn't hear it around me. But I heard that my team was to come and say we heard it.
Yeah.
And people were saying online, this is embarrassing. He's loud. It's
talk.
vulgar.
People got that.
And I remember people on the compound, students on the compound would like say it and say it in a jeering way.
Yeah.
And that is why I wasn't discouraged about what I did, because I knew what I did and I knew that they don't understand.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it made me feel unappreciated because what we do on the quiz team, and I'm sure other teams can attest to this, what they do, you're doing this to put your school and your schoolmates on representation. So imagine now, when I put in all this work, when you're at home, turning in your bed 2 o'clock in the morning, I walk up and down I study material. I'm putting myself to all of this to put this school on representation, and this is the thanks I get. I was saddened. I was saddened about what was being said about it, and it made me feel unappreciated. I remember that. But I said to myself, nothing will stop me from being who I am. I didn't care who was saying. It could have been my mother said. Nothing was gonna stop me from being who I am.
Yeah.
I knew why I said it. You probably don't know, but I knew why I said it, and I know what I represent.
Have you ever explained it in such clarity, though?
I have to a few persons who ask, but many people, they just have their own assumptions.
Without even asking.
Right, so they don't come and ask, why was it done? They just have their assumptions, and naturally, I'm the kind of person, if you come to me with your already preconceived conception, me not gonna really fight upon it. Me not gonna fight upon it. You understand?
To be honest, most times you really don't, in a sense, because if you come with a preconceived notion, you're already setting your way about a particular thing, and so it don't make no sense even try to change that. Really,
right. So I remember feeling unappreciated, but it was not going to stop me from being who I am.
And that was my thought process at the time, especially being a counselor in this same institution, in the same space, and being a bit familiar. I wasn't as familiar with you, but I can say this, right? And it's a great thing, right? It was one of the reasons why I wanted it to be a part of my team when it comes down to the peer counseling group, because I saw that you were passionate. And it doesn't matter what it is that other individuals would be saying or wanted to say or wanted to do.
I would
going to be passionate about it. And
yeah.
that's just the personality I saw. And I was like, yo, this is something inspirational. Because if it is that you're trying to bring about a particular thing in people to keep them inspirational or keep them inspired, right? Then you need people like that. You need people like that in your space, you know.
Especially people that they can relate to.
There we go. So they can always see the glass as half full and not necessarily half empty.
Right.
And so you did that perfectly. Listen, to the point, to be honest, I couldn't even recall in recent times whether or not the answer was correct or wrong. I just know that with a passion you said
Hiroshima. Yeah.
And that was a clip that was going, and it went viral.
It went viral. That's the first time I went viral.
There we go. It went viral.
The first time I went viral.
And I remember seeing in the comment section, and persons were like, no, so you must scream at the mic, and people are gonna say things.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, one of the crazy things about, I wouldn't even say make a mistake, but one of the crazy things about faltering to some extent in front of people is that the moment you climb above whatever standard was set, they are the same persons you will see cheering you on after a while. And so that was one of the most inspirational things that came out of all of this for me, to be honest. Me just there think about the fact that when I looked at the TV and I saw a card marked 1 Hiroshima, I was like, here goes an individual spinning something that could have been used against him to mean that here what? Stand up strong.
And that's precisely what I did. Because I saw how viral it went, and I said, I said, any publicity is good publicity. That's what they would say. But I decided that while it is being seen or used negatively, I'm going to spin it for something my own benefit. So I took the name Hiroshima, which I originally rejected, rebuffed. I took it and I made it my thing, and it is now my brand, as I would say.
Because you know what? In a moment such as that, it could have either make you
Or break
you.
Yeah.
Right? And it had the grounds to break you. But trust me, even as an adult, you have to be your feet because
Respect, man.
you never allow it to break you.
Definitely
that's just a clear thing about it. I know that many persons who would have made commentary in a negative manner, they themselves, if it is that they look into themselves, they would realize that to be out there on the forefront,
to be doing that in the
doing
first
that,
place.
and as you say, be up certain hours a night when we are twist and turn.
Not bad, right.
You actually study, you and the team, you're studying, right?
Studying,
You're getting familiar
right.
with the content, and not just you guys who win, who have gotten as far as quarterfinals or whatever. I talk about any team that has entered the competition in general, right?
It takes guts to play quiz. It takes guts.
It takes a whole lot of
Especially in my generation where you know
there's so many distractions, eh?
Yeah, and Gen Z kids are more shy and reserved.
Yeah, that's
it
true.
takes a lot of guts.
If
Probably if it was back in your time where people had to be a lot more go-getters, it wouldn't be that significant. But to show you that in my generation, people were still making an effort to do this.
That's true.
And that is why I respect any team and any person who, not because they would have made to the semi-finals or even win quiz, but the fact that you even took up the mantle to represent your own institution, yourself, your communities, that alone merits respect from me.
So big up all the schools that actually entered.
Definitely.
Right? Well, yeah, that's really awesome stuff. So Hiroshima was the title.
Yeah.
You weren't accepting of it initially, which is understandable because, you know, who would have wanted to accept that, right? Especially given the circumstance behind it, what it was being spun around to look like. And so you entered the following year, right? Where were you placed again?
Last season?
Yeah.
So we went to the semi-finals.
Semi-finals.
Right, went to the semi-finals.
And that's the only thing, a great thing about Titchfield, you know, Titchfield consistently up there, you know?
Yeah.
If you really check it out, Titchfield has been consistently up there.
Ever since 2009, we've been consistently semi-finals, quarterfinals.
Yeah, that's remarkable.
Definitely.
I remember one year I even kick out my school and me vex with it. Me the kind of vex with me.
2014.
I was here. No, not 2014. So more recently.
Camperdown?
Yeah, man. Where were we?
We played Camperdown 2021. I think it was.
I believe.
I think it was third round.
Yeah,
I think it was third round.
Thereabout. And I was faced with I was like, all right, let me not choose whichever one
My
win.
school or the school I'm working at.
Yeah, I was like, whichever one win.
Whichever one. It's always said about people like that, you know.
Yeah.
Whenever the school or the institution in which you're working with or associated, going up against a school that raised you, it's like you can't lose.
Choose. Yeah, I can't choose. I
can't
lose
choose and can't lose.
Because either way, I'm going to be like, yeah, man, my schools.
My schools.
Right? But anyways, so that's something that I experienced as well, right? But nevertheless, a year after that, here you are in the finals with your team. And with a pretty young team.
The youngest person on our team this season
is 14.
Quayne Smith in grade 9.
He's 14, eh?
Yeah, I think it's 14. 14 years old.
Yeah, I think it was 14. So that's pretty young.
Yeah.
Right? And to have come full distance. And one of the things that I find.
And he went to the semi-finals the year before as well.
Nice.
And he was in grade 8 at the time. I think.
That was one of the more remarkable things.
He was one of the first person to play for Titchfield in grade 8 and went all the way to the semi-finals.
Nice. So all around, you found that there were inspirational things.
Happening.
And I'm pretty sure all of your lives would have been changed.
Definitely.
To some extent, or to a great extent rather. So you're known to be Hiroshima, eh? But then here you were again, because you've gone viral again. You know that. Pretty sure you know that, right? And it's. I don't remember the question. But all I know is that my brother would look up in the ceiling
and be like,
fish. And I was there like,
yeah.
Like, I wonder, yo, Alex, easy, you know. The man just find the moments, because the moment you said it, it's like it was clear to me, say, another viral moment is, to be honest. Because of the way in which you said it. And that within itself was inspirational, because while the quiz was going on, we had a reason, we outside had a reason to be a bit doubtful, to be a bit scared, whatever it might have been. I'm pretty sure people did a fret out hell.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, we hear stories about that, yeah.
And I even see a clip with somebody that's going crazy, right? And at that point in time, because at that point in time, I got even a greater level of respect for you throughout that period. And the rest of the boys as well.
Yeah.
Because what I realized was that as the leader, as the captain of the team, you sat there and you realized it was getting down to the wire and the match was almost over.
Yeah.
And you were there behind by 2 points at the very least. And it's like, me just see you look for him and say, you remember that same thing you say Edwards would have said back when he was there, right? Second trio. It's almost as if you were basically saying the same thing.
Trio.
Right? And while I was there, you see when you said that, I was sister, me look on the face and say, when you look calm, I said, what me I worry about?
No, no,
worry about it. Me not worry, me not need for friend.
Yeah.
Because if we don't win, then awesome. But if we don't win and keep this calm demeanor, then we're good. Because we're good.
Good, yeah.
And that within itself was inspirational again to me, right? And I'm pretty sure it was inspirational to other individuals. So you did that. You guys were calm. You waited your turn. You answered the question. You got the points. Here comes JC. They pressed the buzzer, answered the question, and they lost it. At that point in time, I felt it for the team members there because you can just imagine how that feels as well to be up and then within a couple of seconds you're now down.
Yeah.
But I believe the emotions that overtook you guys the moment you realized that the bell went wrong and you had won. What was that like for you? I can't say the emotions taken over, you know.
Yeah.
Because our coach must reach at the bench.
Yeah, man. We were ecstatic.
Yeah.
We were ecstatic with the win. And I mean, people don't know that match meant so many things to my team, to my school, to our program. It meant so many things, and I can share a couple of them with you. But I remember we were overjoyed with the idea that the work we have been putting in, not just for that season, but for so many years. Because I've wanted to win quiz since I was in grade 4.
Yeah.
So really, for me, winning school challenge quiz on that night, April 8, 2025, was just a culmination of one season, but for about 9 years of desire. That's what Jamaica was seeing that night. 9 years of desire for this one individual finally coming to fruition. That's what it meant for us, for our program. I mean, while we would have been to semifinals the year before, and we would have played some very competitive schools like Manchester in the quarterfinals the same season, 2024. In terms of, it's a program and it's a high school program, and you want to see it the longevity of the program. People like me in our upper six, I have to leave, I can't come back. You need people to replace me. But it's the thing with my generation. While in your generation, quiz was this wonderful thing, I'm sure if you were given that opportunity, of course I'm taking that. No question, because of how your generation was. My generation.
You're sick in trouble at school.
I mean, who did it? But my generation, Gen Z isn't so much into things like quiz. And so in many senses, and in other schools as well, the quiz is dying because not many students are willing to take up not really willing to take up the mantle to support their school and to represent themselves or their communities. But we were confident that, all right, and this is something that I said, you can't want people to come and play a quiz and have no reason for it. Give us a reason. Give us a reason. Show us something. Because I wanted to play a quiz for the same reason. 2016, Zidane, Rhino, Freshman, Squitty, those gentlemen, they gave me a reason to want to play a quiz. They showed the pride that it represented for my family and for Portlanders, and I'm sure for many other people across the world who watched that night. And I said, they gave me a reason. It is only fair that I give the next generation a reason. That's the same.
Awesome.
And that's one of the biggest reasons why we're playing.
Say what the man, you know, man, diplomatic from a long time, you know. So here you were, as a youngster, right? You were looking even way beyond the glitz and glam that may very well come with you. You were looking at inspiring a whole generation.
Yes, because I was inspired.
You were inspired.
And I said it was only fair to do the same
thing.
Finally, to the future Titchfield quizzers, never waver, never surrender, remain positive and steadfast, always ignoring the doubters, embracing the sweet struggle and fighting with all your heart. For it is through these same principles that the winning trophy may now find a home at 22 Fort George Street near Glistening Waters, where the cannons of the Titchfield High School thunder with victory. Thank you and good night.
Listen, I need to have that click there. Just save it.
Yeah.
Because that speech.
Powerful. Powerful.
Yeah, look at, I think I'm presidential or prime ministerial type of.
I get that.
What do you call it?
But
Prime
what-
ministerial type of speech. Yeah,
But when you've waited so long to do it, you take everything.
But now it becomes evident
Yeah.
why the speech was so passionate.
Because it meant that much to me,
Because it
and I'll
meant that
show you
much to you.
something. In my speech, what I look at as a captain, what can I do for my school? No. What can I do for my program? No.
Yeah.
Is I can win for us? No.
Yep.
But what can I do for the next generation of quizzes before me? I will leave you with advice, and I will leave you with my formula for success. And I said, and that's why the last thing I said, because I want to be the freshest thing in the individual's mind when he's watching that speech. In the future, don't waver.
Yeah.
No, while it is true that you may have times when you feel like this is impossible, I've had times when I feel like probably this won't work out. I've had those feelings, but this is the truth. While it is okay to think that, it is never okay to give in to it. And I never gave in. That's why I said, no, surrender. We don't give in to it. You understand? Keep pushing, keep persevering, keep believing. Silence the doubters, because I've had so many doubters. I've had people telling me, you will never win quiz. I mean, our school, I remember when news came out that Jaga had to withdraw, and we are now in the grand finals. Social media, I didn't see the comments, but I heard that look at Bush school, look at rural school. There were so many people that doubted us. But the idea for me, I want to lead the next generation with something to hold on to. You don't give in, you don't surrender. You have to work hard, because as much as you want to believe that you can win, I mean, faith without work is death. Let's look at it that way. You can believe in yourself, but if you don't put in the work, you get to nowhere.
Mr. Anderson, I ask you a question. So, this is where I'm ask you, though. Because you just say a whole lot of things, you know. We probably can't even use your clip as one of them,
Sure.
you know,
Inspirational,
clips, to remind people why it is that I'm actually doing this whole channel, right? What is it that you want to be in the future?
All right, you ready? You ready for this?
You ready, people?
You ready?
You ready for your one?
A civil rights and a corporate attorney at the law, a politician, a businessman, and a writer, as well as a father, a husband, and a lover.
I just ensure, I just trying to ensure that these viewers are actually viewing what it is that is being said, hearing what it is that is being said, and I'm pretty sure this will all come to
Definitely,
fulfillment.
with hard work and belief.
With hard work and belief. And you have shown that you're capable of working hard. And not only that you're capable of working hard, because some of us will work hard enough, but even while working hard, sometimes we don't even believe in the end product of what it is that we're doing.
You're just doing a thing.
You're just doing a thing because everybody else is doing something, let me do something. Let me show that I can too. But it's evident that you believe in the product in which you're putting forward.
Yeah.
When you ask where you want to be, brother, you just give me a whole book of things. You ask me what me want to be, I'm going to tell you about 3 things and that's it. Right? You just list all father and good lover and all these things. That's remarkable within itself. I thank you for being the guest. The guest on Validate This.
Validated Simpson, the pleasure is all mine. Thanks for having me.
Big up yourself.
Thanks for having me.
And all the best as it pertains to your future endeavors, future family and all these things. I'm pretty sure mommy must be proud of you.
Entire family,
Family must be proud of you. Friends must be proud of you. All the enemy them proud of you.
We all get this, you know.
Crazy thing, you know, people. His birthday was actually the day after the finals, So happy belated birthday to you.
Thank you so much.
I know I said happy birthday to you on the day, because it's soon up on the day, but I'm saying happy belated birthday to you again.
Yes,
right?
thank you so
and
much.
Probably one day when the channel blow up and all these things, we can you know, give you a gift for Mark, validate this and all these things, right? Because you're one of the forefathers.
Definitely.
But one of the things I'll say is this, and for those who are actually watching and may contemplate doing a particular thing simply because they don't feel like that, they don't feel like as though persons are motivating them enough or trying to inspire them enough. Nobody owes you anything really and truly, to be honest, right? It is your dream, it is what it is that you want to fulfill. And if it is that you want to fulfill a particular thing, you have to find the power, the inspiration, the motivation, the drive, the passion, whatever it is, from wherever it is that you're going to find it, whatever inspirational place you're going to find it, and actually move towards it. I believe the good Lord led you perfectly into doing this, because from what, 3 grade?
From 3rd grade,
Inspirational.
And I will say to our viewers that, I mean, while you love to have people who are your rock, people who support and encourage you, you have to be your biggest supporter. And I take a line from Protege, from Protege's song Switch It Up, where he said, I am competing with my past self, and that is what makes me stronger. For me, every single year when I play School Challenge Quiz, I make an effort to come back better than I was last year. And it shows. In my first year, we went to the 2nd round. it wasn't one of our best years.
Yeah.
I accept that, and I'll show you something as well with that. My second year quarterfinals with Monroe, my third year semifinals with Calabar,
Yeah.
and this year grand finals. If you track the trajectory, we're going higher each year because and not just myself but my individuals and our coaches, we make the genuine effort to come back stronger. For me, I didn't have that person to compete with to drive me to say, okay, you and I do the same areas and I have to outdo you to make it on the team. So what I did, I was not going to make that an excuse for poor performance. I was going to use myself as my biggest competitor.
There we go.
Whatever I did last year, this year I will outdo it.
There we go.
And that was always it for me. You have to be your biggest fan and your biggest critic. You have to believe in yourself when no one else does, but you also have to be your biggest critic. You have to be your biggest judge. You can never allow yourself to become complacent and believe that you have reached. Even when you have climbed the mountain and you've reached the top, I mean, why settle for there? Why not reach the stars? Never settle for anything. Never settle for less. Be proud of who you are. Respect the work that you're doing. And I mean, keep tuning in to Validate This.
That has been another episode of Validate This. Much love. Take care. God bless.